Hello, denizens. How are you? Do you notice anything different? Yes, I am now the proud owner of a green screen background. I will be abusing this new toy relentlessly. Oh boy, this running is really hard. I'm sweating. But today, my plan is to give you provide some observations about using Big Sur on both my Intel and AMD Hackintoshes. Stay tuned. Oh, I better get more exercise. The first impression when Big Sur booted up was, "Dear Mary, Mother of Jesus," it worked. I think that's the first impression of all Hackintosh users when we update anything. It's not that we expect it to fail, but it's always a pleasant surprise when it does work. Seeing the macOS running on a PC box always seems totally magical, well, to me at least. I wouldn't normally update my work machine with a version 0 of any macOS Catalina, case in point, but everything is updated to the latest version of OpenCore and fully backed up, including my EFI. The community has been very positive about the Big Sur betas, so I took the dive. My second impression of Big Sur was, "Holy crap, a clown puked on my monitor." That was one colorful background. I immediately changed the background and turned off the translucent option in general, allow wallpaper tinting in window. Then I went to the accessibility option, selected display, reduce transparency, which brought back the white menu bar, thank God, across the top, and made the dock background white also. I didn't mind the translucent dock, but it was a small price to pay to get the white menu bar back. My second impression was that there were lots of new things to play with, which makes an OS update less boring just because there are more things to play with. I've tested Big Sur on both my Intel and AMD Hackintoshes. I found that updated versions of macOS need a bit of time to settle in, get used to its surroundings, take a bubble bath, before they come up to speed. On both computers, Geekbench and Cinebench scores were lower than in Catalina. Well, actually, about the same. But in day-to-day use, I would say that Big Sur definitely felt snappier. It booted faster, opened from sleep faster, many of the applications started faster. But rather than rambling, let me go through it in some more logical order. General user experience. I'm not going to go into which new icons I liked and didn't like, though the updated Final Cut Pro icon was just bizarre. No X, by the way, if anyone noticed. No more X on Final Cut Pro. The X is gone, baby. You will notice the system type is lighter and smaller. I expected to have trouble with that, but because the actual letters are wider, I have had no problem with readability, even though they are smaller. Overall, Big Sur is a much better, more unified experience where the rules seem to be followed across more system experiences, dialog boxes, and into the actual software you use. I think we lost the useless widget screen in Catalina, you can correct me if I'm wrong, in exchange for a somewhat useful notification system on the right-hand side. And then there was the half-assed iOS-like integration. Big Sur, on the other hand, is the most integrated macOS experience I can remember in a long time. The interface widget and notification /widget manager works really well and is visually very helpful. This is not a Big Sur issue, but I'm still not a fan of the mystery drag bar at the top of applications and Finder windows. Nope, can't drag there. Yes, you can drag there. Oops, sorry, you're a bad boy. The collapsible left navigation menus on the Open and Save dialog box threw me for a loop until I noticed Apple had replaced the hide word, hide link, with a turn-down chevron. I like the new dialog box design and the X in the top left of many design elements to close them. Good work, Apple. but I'm still going to live with it a bit further and deliver my final judgment later. On to some benchmarks. Just a quick bit of before and after benchmarking between Catalina and Big Sur. On my Intel i7-10700 with Radeon 7 GPU, my Geekbench Catalina single score and multi-course benchmarks were 1207 and 9143 respectively. My Big Sur benchmarks were 1275 and 9029, pretty much the same. Catalina metal score was 96,590 and Big Sur was 69,036. On my AMD 3600X and RX 580 GPU, my Geekbench Catalina single core and multi-core benchmarks were 1267 and 7055. My Big Sur benchmarks were 1279 and 7397. Close again. AMD Catalina metal score was 36,699 and Big Sur was 30,002. None of this was very scientific. I didn't do a Cinebench test, but I did run it just so I could have this really cool background. Conspiracy theorists will assume the lower metal scores were done to make M1 Max look better. Personally, I think it will improve as Big Sur matures. Still, important stuff like saving Final Cut files out to H.264, H.265, and ProRes showed no change in times between either of the boxes. It seems these benchmark tools are as accurate as presidential polls. What works and what doesn't work. So far, I've not found a single thing that is not working with my 10700 under Big Sur. Viscosity VPN works. I don't have any Finder extensions or any other weird macOS extender apps. Messages, FaceTime, handoff, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth are all working. The only thing that remains somewhat problematic, Safari does crash at least once a day. QuickTime Player does not quit gracefully. I always get a QuickTime quit unexpectedly error. It doesn't do anything harmful other than that. As a Hackintosh user, I'm not going to call Apple and complain.
Hello, Apple. Yes, I'd like to complain about my Mac. What is my serial number? Oh, it's Did you get that?
I'll do further testing when I update my real Macs to Big Sur and see if I have the same problems with those boxes. Now, I've never had issues with Final Cut or Logic on any of my Intel Hackintoshes. It was the AMD experiment back in May where I threw my first Ryzen Hackintosh together and tried to make that my daily driver. A stunning 3950X, 16 cores, 32 thread beast that unfortunately failed on the following fronts. It did not work with any of my USB DACs that I had. Underperformed badly in Logic, essentially unusable. Underperformed in Final Cut, except for file export. Draw programs were sluggish. Overall, it did not feel like a 16-core, 32-thread machine. And I could not calibrate my monitor. i1 Studio would not work. Was it the motherboard? Was it the processor? Several people commented that I didn't know what I was doing. Can you believe it? Sorry, I need to go for a bit of a cry. Okay, I'm better now. I dumped my Ryzen experiment for an i7-10700, which has performed extremely well. So now it's 6 months later. Lots of progress has been made on the open-core Ryzen front. Are all the problems that I had back in May fixed? My USB DACs all seem to work. Logic now works perfectly well. I could easily hit 100 tracks in the Logic benchmark on my 6-core 12-thread 3600X, whereas back in May my limit was 25 tracks. As a point of comparison, my 8-core 10700 can comfortably hit 128 tracks, which seems to make sense. Final Cut now works as expected. It's working very nicely. The previous Hackintosh struggled with vlog footage, and here it is, working just fine. I didn't throw a ton of effects at this because I don't expect anyone with a 6-core, 12-thread computer, to do high-end video editing. Plus, I was just using an RX 580 on it. Draw programs are all up to speed. The only thing that still doesn't work is my monitor calibration software. I could switch calibration systems and hardware, but it's a big investment I'm not prepared to throw away. So that's a pretty good score. Only one thing still has issues. The best news is that it was way easier to Hackintosh the AMD system now as compared to back in May, which was a bit of a mess. Was the anomaly between the monster 3950X or the 3600X? I wish I could tell you. I sold the 3950X a long time ago. Who do you think I am? Steve or Linus or Steve or that other Paul? Are you kidding? Hope that helps anyone out there thinking of building an Intel or Ryzen Hackintosh. Till next time, denizens, so long. Oh no, I'm being chased by elephants. Ah!